Good evening, everybody. Let me start with a paper that was published in the British Medical Journal in 1996. And this was a clinical trial with a sample size of 2. In the late 18th century, King Gustav III of Sweden decided that coffee was poison, and he ordered a clinical trial. This was the study design. The king condemned a convicted murderer to drink coffee every day, and the control was another murderer who was condemned to drink tea every day, and they were identical twins. The outcome of interest was death, and 2 physicians were appointed to determine the outcome. If you look at the results of the study, the 2 physicians, they died first. The king was murdered. Both convicts enjoyed a long life. The tea drinker died at the age of 83, and the age of death of the coffee drinker was unknown. Now, these results were sent for publication. You can look this paper up. The p-value was more than 0.05, no conclusion possible. And what is true is coffee was forbidden in Sweden in 1794 and yet again in 1822. And the editors and the editorial staff decided that authors should have some mercy on them. Right. I was the editor in another lifetime of the Journal of Postgraduate Medicine, right? And this was the time when smartphones had just come in. So I had become smart at the smartphone. So the first thing I did is configure emails onto them. I want a show of hands of how many people actually open your phone before even brushing your teeth. Well done. Good job. Great. I've also, thank God. So, you want to see all the emails that have, sort of come in the night, and I wanted to see what the journal emails were. So it's a very nice cartoon which depicts my mindset, or depicted my mindset. Dear contributor, thank you for submitting your story. We regret it does not suit our present needs, because if it ever does, we are in deep trouble. So what I'm going to do is to talk to you about writing a readable and publishable paper. The jokes are done now. Yeah? Why write? What is the structure of a research paper, the IMRAD? References. I'll spend 1 slide on active versus passive voice, the importance of hedging in research, why titles are important, abstract, and I would, touch 1 slide, I don't know much about this, on artificial intelligence in medical writing. Donald Kennedy was the editor of Science. What did he say? All the thinking, all the textual analysis, all the experiments, and all the data gathering aren't up to anything until we write them up. In the world of scholarship, in the world of science, we are what we write. We are who, We are somebody because we write. But why we write can be divided into 2 categories. One is research advancement, and the second is career advancement. Research, knowledge building, you want to share your experience, you want to stimulate a debate like we've had, you have something important to say, you actually think that what you do changes practice, and you want somebody else to examine your work. Actually, you don't. Career advancement is the second part of it. You want appreciation. All of us have gigantic egos, every one of us in this room. It enhances our CV, looks good. You get grants, yeah. You also entertain, and I'll show you how you entertain by publishing. You also console yourself, and this patient died, but you don't make this mistake. So you also console. Before you write, what do I have to say? Is it worth saying? What is the right format for the message? Is it a case report, original article, systematic review? What is the right audience for the message? And what is the right journal for the message? So this is Sir Austin Bradford Hill, 1965. Why did you start? What did you do? What answer did you get? And so what? This seems to me to be a logical order for a scientific paper. So this brings you to the structure of the original research article. I stands for introduction, rationale, sometimes known as background. What did you do is methods. What did you find is results. And so what does it mean, is your discussion. So the introduction should supply the why of the subject, the rationale, and supply adequate background information so that somebody doesn't have to go back and look at the references, and always end with the aim of your article. I found this very, very nice article, and my teachers have taught me that your introduction should be arresting, but your introduction should be ABC. It should be accurate, it should be brief, and it should be clear. Accuracy, brevity, clarity. Chronic kidney disease has emerged as one of the most prominent causes of death and suffering, due in part to the rise in risk factors, obesity and diabetes. The number of patients affected by CKD is increasing. Although mortality has declined in end-stage kidney disease, the global burden of disease shows that CKD has emerged as an important cause of mortality. This narrative review, right, Sir mentioned it earlier, Dr. Manjunath. So already telling you that it's a narrative review, summarizes information about global CKD prevalence, trends and determinants. The fantastic part of this paper is it tells you, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to mention or discuss patient-reported outcomes, progression to ESKD or other clinical parameters, right? So ends by saying what you're not going to do. Next, we come to the methods. Design, study material, that's your population. How did you select inclusion-exclusion criteria? What did you do with them? How did you assess your outcomes? Primary endpoints, secondary endpoints, statistical analysis, and ethical considerations. Always remember, have sections and subsections for clarity in your, we don't think like this, we actually think in bits. This study, again a very nice study, this is called as the Master Plan Study Group, and I was actually fortunate I found these studies. It starts by talking about the design and inclusion, a comprehensive description of patient selection and assessment of abdominal aortic classification has been previously summarized. So this study looked at correlation between plasma magnesium or low plasma magnesium and abdominal aortic calcification. Something has gone wrong with the slides. Anyway, so what I liked about this paper was thar thar thar. This is done by this fellow, that is done by this fellow, now you go and look for it. It was such a crisp, clear methodology. So what they do is, we have assessed it by Peters' method. In short, Peters' method is 1, 2, 3, 4. We will briefly summarize it. How did we assess abdominal aortic classification? Kapila's method, finished. Now you go and see that method. Yeah? And how did we assess plasma magnesium? According to the manufacturer's protocol. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Very, very, very good paper, but it's very short. You have to go through it. No? Statistical analysis. Now see, this is interesting. They brought in results into the methods. As 79 out of 280 patients had no calcification, we used a zero inflated Poisson model to estimate the association, we can discuss this later, between abdominal aortic calcification and plasma magnesium concentration. Finally, we took consent, we took ethical approval, and we followed the Declaration of Helsinki. Very crisply written. This is the Master Plan Study Group. It's a free article on PubMed Central. The next part of your paper is the results. What do you do with the results? You go from what you know to what you didn't know when you started the study. So what is known? Patient demographics, males, females, age, body weight, that's your known. Then you present your group characteristics, that's usually table 1. NEJM versus other journals, to be, to P or not to P. That's there in your table 1. Report actual p-values and confidence intervals, very nicely described by Dr. Tukaram. Summarize your findings in figures and tables. A picture speaks louder than 1,000 words. Account for all your observations, and as Dr. Tukaram very rightly said, also focus on safety. So let's look at the same master plan study. Now, this fellow, this Ted, whoever, he just starts by saying table 1 shows everything. Table 1 shows baseline characteristics of 280, so please go and see it. Which is not a bad thing, instead of summarizing so many males, so many females. This cohort consisted of relatively young patients with a mean age of 61 years. The average eGFR was whatever. Patients had moderately decreased or moderate to severely decreased renal function, and 79 out of 280 patients did not have this abdominal aortic calcification. The plasma magnesium concentrations was whatever, and I can't see what I have typed here. But anyway, one group had higher plasma magnesium concentrations and the other had lower plasma magnesium concentrations. Then we go to the discussion of the study. How do you write the discussion? You summarize why you did, what you found, who says similar things, who says dissimilar things, for and against, state your strengths and your limitations, and finish off your discussion. Again, cut. In this study, we aim to investigate whether plasma magnesium concentration is a determinant for the presence and severity of vascular calcification in moderate CKD. I'm coming to this. We identified a moderate, non-statistical significant association between the score and the plasma magnesium concentration. Other studies have reported stronger associations. We did not find it. The strengths of our study was a well-characterized study cohort, and a major limitation of our study was that we had a relatively small sample size. I would also add that you didn't have aortic calcification, but a lumbar X-ray was available only in a subgroup of patients. In conclusion, a statistically non-significant association between plasma magnesium and abdominal aortic calcification suggests limited, I'm coming to this, any potential preventative effect of magnesium on the development of abdominal aortic calcification in non-dialysis CKD patients. It's a good study the way it is written. Now I'll come to another part of writing, which is use of active voice versus passive voice. Consider this example, you will recognize it immediately. In this paper, a structure is suggested for DNA. Yeah? We wish to suggest a structure for deoxy, the salt of deoxyribose nucleic acid. So the distinction between using active voice relative to passive voice. When do you use passive voice? To hedge. Neoadjuvant chemotherapy selects radioresistant clones. It is possible that neoadjuvant chemotherapy selects radioresistant clones. So when you're not sure about something, when you don't want to make a commitment, use the passive voice to hedge. And I tried hard, but I couldn't find a kidney journal which gave you active versus passive. I'm sure there are, I didn't look hard enough. But the British Medical Journal, Nature, Ophthalmology, Science, all of these recommend that you use the active voice when you write your manuscript, right? Now, discussion, common pitfalls. Do not reiterate selected results. Do not keep on emphasizing the strengths and not focusing on the limitations. Do not inflate the importance of what you found, and do not go beyond evidence to draw unjustified conclusions. Now we go to what's remaining, title, abstract, and references. Remember that the title is the first thing an editor sees on submission and can easily prejudice the way in which your paper is handled. It's also the first thing seen by a reader. So reader might actually easily discard your paper after reading your title, right? So the ICMJE tells you to have concise, informative titles, but there's one classification I found which divides titles into indicative. It states what the paper covers without telling you what the paper found. And there is informative, right? So let's take certain examples here. Do Indian men have similar oncological outcomes with abiraterone plus ADT in the setting of metastatic hormone-sensitive prostate cancer, right? So they're asking a question, but they're not answering it. Any problems with this title? Compared to whom is not given. Yeah, there is, but that's okay. This is a paper by Ajay Kanbur. Change of the suprapubic catheter, not always safe. So the answer is actually in the title. Yeah. So what's the other problem? You don't want to read it, no? You know it's maybe occasionally it's not safe. So there is no right or wrong answer, but this is it. Okay. Case reports, okay, and titles. An unusual pen pal. Case report and literature review of posterior urethral injuries secondary to foreign body insertion. From urethra with shove. It's like Russia with love. So, Russia. Case of the wandering kidney. Why do people do this? You know, you want to inject some humor into your title. So there was a study which actually looked at, do humorous titles bring more citations? Answer, no. It just increases the chance that somebody might read it, but it doesn't increase the chance that somebody is going to cite it. But I think some of these are insensitive, yeah? So then we come to the abstract. It's a succinct, accurate summary of your paper. The purpose of the abstract, I think Dr. Tukaram says he reads it last. Everybody reads it first, I think. What's important is you write it after the paper is written. Don't write it before the paper is written. It's included in abstracting services, and it helps the reader decide whether or not he or she wants to read the paper. Follow the IMRAT pattern, look at instructions to authors, decide whether you need to make a structured abstract or an unstructured abstract. Remember, do not copy sentences from the main paper. Use actual data, use p-values, use confidence intervals. Otherwise, your abstract is really not worth anything, and include the main statistical conclusions. And then, of course, you have references. Generally, there are two types. You have your Vancouver style, then you have the Harvard style. Remember, Vancouver is not one style. The last I remember 2 years ago, Vancouver had 21 styles within it. So the italics, the comma, the semicolon, all of which is different in different journals. Take home message, look at the instructions to authors. This is your one-stop shop. The Equator Network. The moment you take out a pen or your laptop, yeah, go to this Equator Network, because everything that you write today has a guidance. You want to write a case report, the guidance is the CARE guidance, case report guidance. You want to write a meta-analysis, PRISMA, right? You want to write a pharmacoeconomic analysis, the CHEERS review. So everything, and it's expanding like not logarithmically, I think exponentially. So every time you visit this website, you sort of, your platelets start aggregating. It's really hard, but it's all there. The writing process. Samuel David Gross. I generally spend from 5 to 8 hours a day on my manuscript, subject to, of course, frequent and sometimes annoying interruptions by patients. Who doesn't know it better than all of you? Yes? Right? So give your manuscript sufficient time. Give it to your enemy to review. Revise, 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 and re-revise. And if you're an auditory learner like I am, you might want to read it aloud, yeah? And do not rely on computerized spell checks always. What happens to your paper? Those who can, write. Those who cannot, edit. And people like me, they set editorial policy, right? There are 3 things which usually don't happen. Outright rejection, outright acceptance. Most of the time it goes out for peer review. No changes, minor changes, major changes, or of course, rejection. Peer review is what it is. It is a black box, but it is what it is, and it's what we have. It's the best system. Please stop me when my time is up. The process of resubmission: read the comments, get angry, put it away, be polite, admit errors, and submit within the allocated period. And there are enough journals. You'll find some journal where you can publish your paper. Based on my experience as an editor, I find that Indians, all of us like to talk a lot, So we are too verbose even in our manuscripts. Really, I'm telling you, very, very verbose. You send something back, people get so offended, So ABC: accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Lastly, artificial intelligence in medical writing. I think there's somebody who works on AI. Somebody was there. So this started in JAMA, where somebody said Chat GPT was also a co-author. There was a lot of discussion and debate on it. So I pulled out this journal and says AI use technologies only to improve the readability of your language. If you've used AI, declare that you've used it. Disclose which part you've used the AIs in. Right? Okay. I just thought this is important. We've had too many statistical discussions. And since this is urology, it's very close to your kidney. A mistake in the operating room can threaten the life of one patient. A mistake in statistical analysis or interpretation can lead to hundreds of early deaths. So perhaps it is odd that while we allow a person to conduct surgery after several years of training, we give SPSs to almost anyone, right? And T.S. Eliot, I think this is fascinating. This is my last slide. The end result of most research, I think this is true for life, of life. At the end of all exploring will be to arrive at where we started and to understand the place for the first time, right? Thank you very much.
It was wonderful, Nithya. And
thank you, sir.
I must say that I would agree 100% with you that your articles get much better after reviewers don't get offended. I tell you, our submissions, the English writing, is basically flawed because that's not our primary.
It's not our primary language, yeah.
And many times I found that why couldn't I write so well when the reviewer had completely changed the sentences in my article. And it does feel that you do feel that you're lower as far as your evaluations go. Scientifically also we don't accept that there are basic flaws in the methodology itself. And I can tell you that in India in general, and it's probably true today also, by and large, where the article is published, if we have to review New England Journal article, usually we don't criticize it that much in our journal clubs. That's what happened when I was training. KI, New England Journal, we used to most often say that this is very good article. There were good articles, there were no. But I went to US. I was in the lab, and every day, 7 o'clock, we had a journal club. Every day. Because the person who was running the lab was an American Heart Association, one of the senior editors of the journal, as well as the reviewer of most of the articles. So he would give everybody. There's a lot of postgraduates and all. Every day we use. And I can tell you that no journal club went beyond the methods. He would kill every article, the methodology. And I couldn't find that we never went to the results. He said if the methodology
is flawed,
yes. No point in it. And he would tear this up and throw it into the dust. I was surprised that out of sort of 2 months, 3 months, not a single article was there. And that was basically the critical evaluation of
yes.
Which I can tell you that I never had done. The science was going above my head because I had never been exposed to those kind of things. I could only change the English. This was a South American group from Argentina and from their English. So after 2 months, the only positive thing that I found was that the English reviewer of that group came back and said that your English of the submissions has improved. How has it happened? And then he called me, my boss called, and he said that this is the guy who's. I said, I have not been able to understand the science of it, but the only thing I could have contributed was some improvement in your English language and all that. But I agree 100% with you. I can tell you that even when I do the journal clubs, even currently, I don't think we are able to do the critical evaluation to the same extent. And I hope that the current presentations today, and especially your presentation, this should help people to take an independent view of, to accept criticism, because many of the articles that we have written have been improved by our reviewers. I can
absolutely, absolutely.
And spend a lot of time with your articles. As you said, keep on reviewing and reviewing. Give some time. Don't submit it in the first write itself. You will find that you will keep on revising it and making it better and better. That's true.
I really enjoyed, ma'am, your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Many times I was confused, you were telling taka like that. So whether you are really commenting or really appreciating.
You've learned one new word, not to press.
So I thought that it is coming like Rahul Gandhi taka. But I really enjoyed, ma'am. Really, this was the message. I'm just giving my one example. I have got one invitation to write a review article, some rare viral infections in kidney disease patients. I have written this everything. I went to the reviewer. What they are told, they are returning time and again because this is written in very subject matter is very good, so I am keeping it. Otherwise, you could have returned it back. But this was invited, so they were forced to take this. So what ultimately, every time they were returning to me because you are not writing punctuations, everything is properly. Do punctuation properly. Then I have told him if you can help us in doing this here, that is fine.
So then they do have staff for that now. If you look at the journal, they will tell you, do you need an assistant?
Then he has told me that then I will be one of the co-author. So he is also one of the co-author. I will like that's fine for you. You can be co-author. I am just giving you. Now I am the editor of the Indian Journal of Transplantation. I know this. Now that was the reason when I have purchased AI you are talking about.
Which one?
Grammarly.
Grammarly.
So I used to put every correction, punctuation, everything to the
into Grammarly.
Same time when I was writing this any paper.
There's one more, Wordyful.
Yeah,
I haven't used
it. Grammarly,
excellent. Yeah.
That was good for this. I am just giving you all postgraduate that you can spend 8,000 rupees from the premium for the Grammarly and
yes.
you can take care of this here. So that is the.
So that the focus is on the science and not the. Yes, absolutely.
Other important things what we encountered was the plagiarisms, because as sir was telling, many of these articles written in such a good English that you are tended to keep and paste it, copy and paste. So that becomes the problematic. So plagiarism is another important
very
thing
fine.
That we should always keep in mind when you are submitting your articles.
Well taken, sir. Point well taken.
Copy paste.
Copy paste, because they are veteran in writing. Some of the good authors in any they are written in such a good small things in so much clear language. You are tended to copy and paste. So don't do that. So that is all from my side. Thank you very much.
You can check it out.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really a very
Thank you so much.
talk. Ma'am, I just have one question for
yes.
you. When you spoke about the table 1 with the Takata comment to it. So do you suggest that we do the p-values for the table 1? Because my understanding was that the p-values in the table 1 don't have any
So
meaning.
my suggestion to you would be look at the instructions to authors. There are journals which ask for p-values and journals which say if you have an RCT then the p-values have no meaning, because you might find a difference between the two groups even though your, I think sir it was the point that you made about your the known biases and the unknown biases earlier. So my recommendation would be to look at the instructions to authors and then follow whatever you see. But if you did find a difference between the two groups, then make sure that you take care of it in the statistical analysis. Dr. Khanna has got up.
Yeah, you would have realized the only talk we allowed extra time was Nithya's.
No. See, no.
So good.
25 minutes. I
No,
timed
your
it.
talk was the discussion because it was so good it could not be stopped. It had almost a spiritual touch to the talk which she gave. Thank you so much.